So Tim Pool, along with several other right-wing influencers, met with Netanyahu in what was called a Chatham-style meeting. So Chatham-style simply means, in journalistic terms, we're not allowed to know exactly what was said by whom in the meeting, nor are we allowed to know exactly who attended, although there were some journalists that slipped up and mentioned some names. So on its face, the fact that a bunch of influencers and journalists and pundits were invited to a meeting with Netanyahu and they were not allowed to mention direct quotes from Netanyahu should be a little bit suspicious to everybody. But to be clear, this motherfucker being invited to that meeting is hilarious. Because some of you all might recall, whenever he joined the Daily Wire, right after Candace Owens left, and was tweeting out these pro-Israel, Israeli flag posts, he tried to play it off like it was a joke and we just didn't know that we were being trolled. Trying to pretend as if his shift towards being extremely pro-Zionist and pro-Israel had nothing to do with the fact that he was joining the Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro. So Tim was just trolling. But apparently he did such a good job convincing the world that he was pro-Israel that he was literally invited to a private meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. This is the same guy who, whenever a guest brought up the fact that Israel has a disproportionate amount of influence on U.S. politics, he said that the world is just suffering from Israel derangement syndrome.
I think you got Israel derangement syndrome.
Okay, well, but
I call it Israel-Palestine derangement syndrome.
Then
Israel derangement syndrome. Israel derangement syndrome. I think you're obsessed with Israel. You have some kind of obsession with Israel.
I've answered your procedural objection.
You literally didn't.
I said
you brought up Israel every fucking time. Holy shit, brother. Dude, you're obsessed. It's like your brain is stuck in Israel.
And of course, when people called him out on social media for meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, he doubled down. Once again, claiming that everybody has Israel derangement syndrome. But I'm confused, Tim. Is it really derangement syndrome whenever they have the most financial influence over our politicians, which means they have the most political influence over our politicians and generally the world? Oh, and they were able to have a personal liaison within the United States intelligence community in which the black ops they committed were only known by him. And Netanyahu can just show up unannounced, invite some of the most popular right-wing Zionist influencers in the world to a meeting at the White House, and then tell y'all to shut up about what y'all talked about? The only thing deranged about this conversation is the fact that you are unwilling to admit how much influence Israel has over the United States and even your ass. Because once again, we have to remember this is the same man who once had Max Blumenthal on to educate people about what was happening in Gaza. He went from that to telling Bibi Netanyahu during a press conference that it's actually Qatar who's behind the rise in anti-Semitic content online. Which, by the way, is actually quite hilarious considering that Qatar is actually an ally of the United States and has never really ever made a move, a significant one anyway, against Israel. Not to mention, it adds insult to injury thinking about the fact this man had the audacity to say Qatar is funding anti-Israel voices when clearly this motherfucker's in the room with Netanyahu because Israel is funding anti-Palestine voices. And they don't even care if those voices actually know what they're talking about because Tim Pool admitted he doesn't know much of anything, if at all, about this issue. And yet he's sitting in the room with Bibi Netanyahu. Y'all think it's because of his expertise? No, it's because he's willing to shut down any and all anti-Israel talk or anything that can implicate them in anything shady. Like whenever the USS Liberty was brought up on his show, Tim Pool immediately said, you should be careful about what you're saying. And even Lauren Chin has to tell him, you know, they did end up having to pay out the American government because of what happened with the USS Liberty. And following this logic, Ian says that he has a genuine fear that there might be a missile launched out of Gaza that attacks the United States and it will be a false flag that actually came from Israel. And Tim proceeds to say, it doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
Dude, I'm concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something with the Israeli government.
No, you should.
No. Wait.
You should be careful about that.
Allegedly, the Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft.
I mean, they did end up paying out the American government.
So I'm concerned like false flag operation, like a missile comes out of Gaza and hits one of our aircraft carriers, but it was actually an Israeli missile. Well, I don't want, we should get out of there.
It doesn't, but let me stop you there. It doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
So Tim is admitting he doesn't care if Israel commits a false flag that puts American lives in danger, as long as it benefits Israel. Yeah, it's because Tim is completely and totally morally bankrupt. That's why he got that meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. Because Bibi needs more people like that on his team. And I just gotta wonder, would Tim Pool and his audience and his ilk be okay if Xi Jinping came to the White House and invited a bunch of leftists to have a one-on-one meeting privately with a Chatham-style press conference? Or would y'all be cool if Vladimir Putin did that? Just out of curiosity. Because even after learning that Israel participated in killing American citizens, you were still willing to meet with Bibi. And if a leftist did something like that with Xi Jinping, even though he never killed a single American citizen, you would spend 2 hours bitching about it and then go on X and spend 2 more hours bitching about it. This is what makes people like Tim Pool so dangerous, because he's somebody who can literally admit he knows nothing about the issue, but because he has an audience and is willing to take money from anyone, as long as they're willing to pay the right price, he will say whatever he wants to whomever he has to say it to, even if it's against American interests and even if it's against the interests of his own audience. The only thing consistent about this man's principles is the beanie on his head. That's it. And the fact that Tim Pool is willing to look the other way when a genocide is happening for money says everything we need to know about him. But the fact that Bibi Netanyahu is recruiting people who know nothing really about what's happening in that region just because they're willing to tout the lines that he's telling him to tout says everything we need to know about him. In other words, you can't believe shit that's coming out of none of their mouths. And the fact that the Trump administration is personally inviting Netanyahu and allowing him to tell American influencers what they should and should not be saying about Israel tells us everything we need to know about him as well. So you go ahead and keep pulling that chair to make sure your master sits down comfortably, Trump, because we see who you're really working for.